So our next panel, I'm actually going to be moderating. We are going to be talking about investment in Ordinals and kind of getting different perspectives, both from venture capital as well as liquid trading fund, Unbroken Chain. We're just going to take a sec to see if this calms down over there. All right, cool. All right. Yeah. Oh, also very important announcement. So the fireside chats have been pushed back half an hour since folks were kind of, getting back from lunch, etc. But we do have fire chats starting in the back to the right if you want to go through the doors and see kind of a little bit more, get a little bit intimate with some of our speakers. Right now we have Trevor Owens, who is about to start, with Ken from Xverse. So they're going to be doing a special fireside chat right now, just through those doors and to the right. All right. All right, guys, how are you? All right, cool.
Doing well.
So I thought that we could kind of start this by just having you guys introduce yourselves and kind of talk a little bit about who you are and how you got into investing in Ordinals and why. Like, I'd love to hear a little bit about each of your individual theses around Ordinals.
Yeah. So I'm Asher, and I'm the founder and chief investment officer of the first Ordinals hedge fund called Unbroken Chain. And now to get to your question, Isabel. So for me, my journey with Ordinals was very, very personal. When what's going on behind me is a little bit distracting. Sorry about that. But basically, when we were starting to approach 10,000 inscriptions, it sort of crossed my radar. And at that point, I made an effort to spin up a node. I hadn't run a node personally since like 2013, when I needed it actually to be a wallet. But I spun up a node because I wanted to try to get in under 10,000. My cat, very personal, my cat had just passed away. And really, my first inscription was simply a picture of my cat that had died as a memorial for her. And sort of set my imagination on fire. And kept inscribing under 10K, and then kept inscribing below 100K. And then the next thing that I would say that got me really excited was I also happened to catch Domo's announcement of Ordi and minted some of those, and that got me excited also.
My name is Tyler Perry-Smith. I am the founder and GP of peach.xyz. We are forming as we speak. It's an up-and-coming Web3 ecosystem-focused fund, but definitely have a hedge towards Ordinals. My background comes from the finance world. I initially got into hedge fund accounting. I'm an accountant by trade. Started out at State Street doing Bank of America, Merrill Lynch's hedge funds. That snowballed into private equity work. And then fast forward a few years, and I was in Palo Alto at a venture fund administration shop, and blockchain capital comes across my desk. One of the very first all crypto focused VCs. And we're trying to unwind this portfolio and understand valuations and all kinds of unique things back in 2016, 2017. And I will tell you, it was very interesting. We had no clue what we were doing, but we got through it. There was a lot of testing things and figuring out kind of what this ecosystem really was, what it was going to do long term. But the returns were substantial enough to really kind of hedge our bets and start focusing on the industry. And so I took it upon myself. I've led numerous teams now through several firms, basically building out blockchain-focused accounting teams to service venture funds. I felt like not only was the ecosystem lacking kind of that professional funding and the backing that it needed to really grow, but there was just no knowledge of the crypto space coupled with accounting. And so as I took on this fund in 2017, I was getting my master's in accounting at St. Mary's at the time in the Bay Area, and student loans were looking a little rough. So as I was learning about this portfolio, Bitcoin was $700. I think Ethereum was $6.25. I bought a couple Bitcoin and I bought a lot of Ethereum. And within a few months, I quit my job. I was no longer working for the VCs, became a full-time trader. So through that 2017 run-up, gained a lot of experience, and then I went back into the accounting world as the bear market came about in 2018. And so over these last few years, it's just really been building out this ecosystem. I quit my job, joined peach.xyz. I'm the CFO of our company as well as the founder of and GP of our fund. But we also have a Web3 infrastructure company behind us. That's really our core. You'll see a lot of our hats and crew walking around. We're getting ready to launch a new project, Commander Doug. So you'll hear more about that from our CTO on the next panel. But I'll pass that off for now.
Hey everybody, pleasure. My name's Sasha. I'm the acting PM at Arca. We're an asset allocator. We have 3 main funds. I cover the NFT, Web3, more esoteric, run-of-the-mill assets. We're definitely a guest in your guys' home. We're not Bitcoin only. I've been a part of Bitcoin since mid-2016. Ran a mining outfit in Oklahoma for about a year. I was a chemist by trade, so I have a BS in chemistry, kind of the same path as you. I found crypto early enough and found out I was pretty decent at looking at numbers, so I made a decent amount of change. Arca offered me a job out of school, and I've been there for 6 years now. But our overall strategy is anything that we believe carries value but maybe doesn't have enough penetration in the market. We're rather early to Ordinals. I might be in the minority here. I've looked at everything. I remember when you guys had the spreadsheets for buy sell. I remember early Sparrow. I personally don't own an Ordinal yet. That's not by design, mostly just by stress and lack of time. But very interested in what you guys are doing, and we're here to learn actively. So I appreciate the time.
Awesome, thank you. So I want to kind of get questions rolling by talking about what you guys are each looking for when you're making Ordinals investments, whether they be companies or whether they be assets. Asher, let's start with you. What are you most looking for? What are you thinking about when you're making Ordinal investments on the liquid side?
Good question. So for Unbroken Chain, we're trying to create an investment vehicle that essentially gives our limited partners exposure to the Ordinals ecosystem overall. So as a result of that, we're focused mostly on 3 buckets. So obviously inscriptions, we're very interested in, I think Isabel in our announcement described them as distinguished inscriptions. There's a lot to that term. But essentially things that we think have historical value is the main consideration there. And then the other 2 buckets that we're very interested in are tokens that trade natively on Bitcoin. So Domo, the inventor of BRC20, he's one of the general partners of Unbroken Chain, and we invest in BRC20s and we trade BRC20s, including Ordi. We additionally, the third bucket for us is, and I see a number of very familiar Satoshi-related faces in the audience. We're very interested in the underlying asset of Ordinals, and what the revelation that Casey identified with numbering Satoshis, and as a result of that, we're very interested in uncommons and Satoshis that we think are likely to increase in value.
Let's see. First, shout out to Ordi, hitting $1 billion market cap recently. It's also on the front page of CoinMarketCap, which is pretty impressive that we now have a BRC20 living amongst the rest of crypto. I think it's funny. I was sitting in the audience earlier, contemplating what we're going to do with this fund and how we're going to properly deploy it and where we can provide the most value. And like Arca, we're not specifically focused on Ordinals, but given that we're building a tool or a product, I should say, with Inscribe.io, which is, there's some alpha for everybody. Inscribe.io will be coming out soon. But within that, we've been talking about getting Commander Doug on chain, and with 12,000 pieces in a collection, it's going to be expensive. We're looking at almost $500,000 depending on the current rate. And I was just thinking, do artists now come to the VCs and look for that initial investment to get started? We were discussing earlier, if you're a sculptor in even current day, but even in past times, you go to carve something out of stone, that's one cost. If you're going to use bronze or copper, that's a whole different upfront cost. Just like $5,000 to get your art on a Satoshi is that upfront cost. So it's going to be very interesting in regards to the ordinal space and how we can support it. We're definitely looking at a lot of options, whether it's direct, like supporting an artist to get their inscriptions minted, or if it's something where we're providing tooling and helping kind of the ecosystem grow from an infrastructure standpoint. So I think it's great because it's so early and there's so much opportunity that I'm glad that I have that problem of trying to pick one or two things that I'm going to focus on. So that's as much as I can give.
Testing. Nice. From our side, to first invest in a sector, we kind of have to start by establishing a thesis. With Ordinals, the bare bones of the idea was that, we've known and owned Bitcoin for a long time. Bitcoin is a very clear-cut use case in terms of, longest chain theory, best security, most provenance. We've also had a long-standing NFT thesis. We have a whole fund spun up for it around digital ownership of non-fungible assets. And when just kind of holistically looking at the landscape of what NFTs have to offer, you kind of run into like three primary traits that you really need for an NFT ecosystem. One being provenance, the other being community, and the third being, quantifiable, valuable assets. So whether it's art or pass-through cash flow assets or split ownership of product, there are three main prongs to what makes an NFT an NFT. And the dumbed down analogy I use for my CIO, who's less ordinal inclined than we are, is that, similarly to like cars, when you have like a BMW, a Mercedes, and Audi, they all kind of tackle the same market and they just focus on different prongs. Mercedes goes for luxury, BMW goes for performance, and Audi kind of runs the middle. So whereas we see Ethereum as like down the middle, we see Solana as very community focused and maybe less so on the provenance side. And then we see Bitcoin as very provenance focused. And that instantly gives it a domain in this industry, regardless of what came first, regardless of what comes next. There will always likely be a space for non-fungible assets on Bitcoin because of them satisfying one of the prongs better than anyone in our space ever could, past, future, present. So from there, just the structure of how we work as a fund, we're very fundamentals focused. As such, we don't typically do a lot of art out of the fund structure. We are members of Flamingo DAO. They kind of take care of it for us. We just watch and smile and wave. But for actual fundamental theses, what we're starting with is the infrastructure. So, Gamma, who's hosting the event, we met them late last year. We're active investors in them, as well as Oil. I believe Cole spoke recently today. That's how we're getting our foot in the door. For us, it's very education-based right now. We do believe there will be a time where the actual ordinals themselves make it into the book, but just very honestly, we're not there yet, and it's a big reason why we're here.
Can I just add on one thing real quick? I just want to challenge everybody out there in the audience to participate in this ecosystem. One thing I did want to mention as you brought up communities and your involvement in this space, it is so early, and there are so many things that we don't know are even capable of or what's next. Part of what I should have mentioned earlier is we will be kind of sidelining some capital for those what next moments. And I think that's another important thing, is to focus on using your platform as a community member and influencing the direction in which we take this. That's a big part of being a VC, is being able to influence the direction on which things are built. But I think you guys have a much bigger voice than we all know. I know when we were in Amsterdam recently for Inscribing Amsterdam, we were coming up with ideas on the fly, and they're telling us jump on GitHub and throw in these comments and let the community of developers know. So I just want to add that's another great place to add value beyond dollars.
Something to. I was just going to say that for us, the thesis is pretty simple for the fund. We believe that a tremendous amount of the hard work has already been done by all the other blockchains, by Ethereum and Solana. They've proven the use cases for us. They've laid out the path. So now what we're doing at Unbroken Chain is we're investing in what we believe to be the use cases that were already proven on all the other blockchains that are inevitably coming to Bitcoin and are going to come to Bitcoin in our opinion, in a much better form. And then the last thing I'd add about that is, what we've seen is and one of the things that we look for and one of the things that's been so interesting in Ordinals is this fair launch dynamic where things that have launched fairly have this perception of fairness, which then really helps those projects do well. You see it with Ordi itself. You see it with the Goosenals, which is like just an incredible phenomenon. And, what I would say about that is I think that's a special thing about Bitcoin culture and something that makes me really proud. That's not an element that I saw on Ethereum or Solana at all. I mean, it was much more of a just like make it rain type environment. We're looking for, and we're very proud of the way that the Bitcoin ecosystem has pushed Bitcoin values into Ordinals.
I think that's a great segue. I actually want to ask Tyler and Sasha, what are you learning or noticing from other VCs coming from other ecosystems in terms of their appetite for investment in Ordinals and why? Would be curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So there definitely is some like de facto segregation going on between ecosystems. Again, this is a very new industry, very new like subsector, and VCs move slow. They always have. Just because we're a faster hyper-iterating space doesn't mean that the people that are wearing Patagonia vests are any quicker here than they are over there. So it takes time. I don't expect everyone to be early. Sometimes people need proof of concept. They need like a historical track record of performance. They also need to gauge LP interest. Most funds are taking capital from outside of their own pockets, which means that they raised on a thesis and they raised on a structure. If they're going to change that structure, they need to get approval from their capital base. If you're a GP fund, you can do whatever, you answer to yourself, but not everybody's structured that way. A lot of people are just getting up to speed. I spend maybe 12 to 14 hours a day looking at this stuff, and I'm getting up to speed. So some of these people are just pulled too many different directions to immediately impact. But I think it's it's not going away anytime soon. So I wouldn't, in my opinion, chastise them for being in 6 months, a year, 2 years later. Maybe they're slowing down the process in terms of funding for this space, but you would rather have people that have built out a thesis and actually believe in it than just have quick money thrown at you by someone looking to turn a dollar. And in that regard, I just think most of it's going to be centered around seeing how this place iterates on infrastructure. A lot of the cool things that I've been seeing while I've been here for the last 36 hours and just around the space and talking to all of you is that a lot of picks and shovels, a lot of infrastructure overlay, and a lot of interconnectivity is being built in real time. And for those of us on the outside looking in, it may seem a little bit difficult to enter, but I don't think it lasts like that forever. And if anything, that should be a very good sign for everyone here today is that there is a lot of natural demand that will come in as soon as it's easy enough to hop over the barrier to entry. And like for myself, I want to spin up a wallet. I want to buy an ordinal. It's not that I think it's not worth it. I am just pulled too many different directions to really sit down, take a week to really figure it out, because the last thing I want to do is hard enough for me to get the Bitcoin that I have. I don't want to go spend it on something I don't understand, spin up a wrong wallet, and then, excuse my French, but fuck it up and lose my Bitcoin, lose the ordinal, and then feel like an idiot for not doing it the right way, especially after we preach to everybody else to do it the right way. So a lot of us are just waiting in the water, waiting for you guys who are much closer to it than us to make it nice and pretty. So we just click a button and we can get our feet wet.
This is a funny moment in my professional career where I've kind of crossed the fence. For the last 10 years or so, I've been on the fund administration side as a controller, teaching a team of accountants how to deal with crypto and accounting for these funds. Not to make fun of Captain Phillips, but the quote that comes to my mind is, "I am the alpha now. I'm on the other side. I have the ability to influence things and do things that I didn't have previously at my control." What I did get to benefit from over these last 8 to 10 years in this space as a controller and an accountant for these funds was watching over $1 billion get deployed into these markets. I had 140-ish funds under my oversight at my previous firm, Carta, and we had some of the largest venture funds in the space under my kind of wings, I guess. And so as I sat and watched these last few years unfold, the run up to 70K or 69, and then right back down into the lower teens, watching these funds navigate that was fascinating. And the amount of capital sidelined right now, if I can leak some alpha, my clients have been calling capital, or were calling capital, for months. And every time that capital showed up, they kept it in the bank because they just kept holding their breath, waiting for the next shoe to fall. And we finally got to that point, I think, in these last couple months, even though Bitcoin's been on a tear pretty much all year long. They are just finally starting to write checks. And it's funny because I constantly am checking in with clients. And one of the big things this week was offering them a seat at the table. Come join us now. I can now interact with my clients on a whole different level than I used to. And not one of my VCs that I have come to be friends with are here. And I got a message the other night that really has stuck with me. A CFO of a almost $1 billion fund group messaged me and said, "I've talked to our entire team. We screwed up. We're not going to be there." And I just kind of smiled. It felt good knowing we're early, we're here, and they're still to come. So who knows where the ordinal space is going to go? Who knows where Bitcoin as a whole is going? But we're here early, and we're planning to stay long. So.
Awesome. Well, so really quickly, I also want to just chat a little bit about how you guys all view sort of different Bitcoin assets in your portfolio construction. So what's your sort of thesis on inscriptions versus exotic or rare sats versus BRC20? How do those distinctions kind of make a difference or not in terms of the companies that you're looking for? And also, Asher, you already sort of briefly touched on this, but how did you come to make the decisions that you did around portfolio construction generally? We'll kind of start there and then move on.
So when I talk about BRC20 tokens, one of the things that I think about a lot is all of the token technologies that Bitcoiners have been trying to get me to use for like the past 10 years. So, honestly, it goes all the way back to Counterparty. No disrespect intended towards Counterparty. It's Liquid, it's RGB, it's Taproot assets. No disrespect to the Stacks community, but it's also Stacks. It's everything. And the truth is, the Bitcoin community never cared about any of that stuff and never really used any of it. There were sort of micro communities that sprouted up for various things that I just mentioned, but they never really mattered. Domo announced Ordi and literally created the most significant Bitcoin token standard by the next morning in terms of actual usage. So that's what we look for. We don't necessarily only look for technical perfection. What we look for is what we believe the market is going to like. And sometimes those are things that are technically not perfect, as we saw with BRC20. Sometimes the market likes things for other reasons, like ease of use, like the perception of fair launch, things like that. So I guess that's what I would say about BRC20s. The rare sat thing, I feel like I sort of already touched on that. for me, it's such an obvious investment, just because it is the underlying asset of Ordinals. And then as far as the inscription piece, everybody here already knows we fully buy in to the thesis that inscriptions are like infinitely better implementations of NFT technology than anything that's come before. And our belief is that the best artists, the best investors are going to gravitate towards the chain where they can be confident that their art is going to exist for 100 years or 1,000 years. And we think investors are going to gravitate towards the same chain. They're going to gravitate towards the chain where they can be confident that their investment is going to exist in 100 years or 1,000 years.
Gosh, portfolio construction's an interesting one, especially with regards to crypto. It offers opportunities that VCs don't typically get. Digging into that a little bit more, a hedge fund's a little bit different than a typical private fund, but on the private fund side, you're in these longer term, early round investments that have limited liquidity. Typically, you're waiting for an IPO type of event to get liquid. With crypto, we have the opportunity not only to invest in companies and get into these private rounds, but then you have things that are liquid and readily available on markets, actively traded like BRC20 or Ordinals. So there's a unique opportunity within our portfolio to structure some of it to be potentially liquid. And that there's a few things that I touch on when I think about my portfolio construction as I'm queuing up Peach 72. I've watched clients do all kinds of crazy things. I've tokenized a fund for clients. I launched a DAO at Carta, and we issued tokens to our clients and then had them submit proposals. And we used that DAO to then take in basically client input. And we built things like live pricing on our platform. So we connected an API to CoinMarketCap. That's all to say that this stuff's super interesting in regards to the portfolio construction because there's a million ways to do it. We're going to be focused on supporting the ecosystem and pushing Bitcoin and the growth of Ordinals forward in any way, shape, or form that we can. And so, like I said earlier, we're going to have some sideline dry powder for those what next moments. If I had to deploy capital right now, definitely would allocate into some of these projects. I think just supporting the ecosystem, getting involved in the honk or the ribbit or whatever the next catchy thing is, I think there's a fervor, there's something about this community that, I mean, we had it in Amsterdam, we all left just buzzing, and I think everyone posted at some point in the next couple weeks following that was in real life events are the alpha. And I hope that this continues to occur. We continue to just expand this community. And I think there's going to be a lot of great opportunities to come. But in regards to rare sats and that sort of stuff, I've started dabbling as a personal investment, learning the space, but similar to Arca, moving slow. And I think that'll be our overall approach in regards to anything in this Web3 space. It's just move slow, build the right things, focus on the community first, and support as many people as we can through the process.
Do you want to just quickly answer? We've got just a minute.
Sure. Quick TLDR, the way our fund is structured lays kind of in between their funds. We're a liquid venture hybrid. We do early stage investments into private deals, whether it's token, equity, hybrid, pipes, convertibles, you name it. We also do direct liquid investments into NFTs. We can do liquid tokens. We're very carte blanche type portfolio construction, so long as it sits in the mandate of the fund, which is NFTs, Web3, and then gaming, but not as applicable here. In terms of like rare sats, I might be in the minority and dissenting opinion. I think rarity, for the sake of rarity, is not too valuable. I think rarity acts as like an amplifier to the product that it's underlying. I think someone on the last panel mentioned that as well. But I looked at all the early inscriptions, and a lot of them were like emojis that were just hyper planted onto an early inscription. And again, I could be completely wrong. We are still learning, but I would prefer something that's rare because of the mix between what it used and what is built upon it. And, then I think about the early blocks and, how many Satoshis are in a 50 Bitcoin block and start running the numbers, and it doesn't feel all so rare anymore to me. But we do have a lot to learn. I could have just said the dumbest thing ever on stage. So we're going to continue researching it, and we're still developing an opinion on Ordinals directly. But we look forward to the day that I buy one in the fund.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel.